Jump on here quickly and give you an idea as to what we do at the Rad Lab when it comes to doing a nutrition assessment and setting people up with calories and what their macros should look like. So I'm going to spin the view around here and show you the printout sheets. This is a live version of the assessment and the debrief that I've done before, but I misplaced and can't find where I did the last video, so I wanted to redo it, and this is especially because I had somebody request that I put this back up. So let me spin the view around quickly. All right, so what we're looking at right here is the printout sheet when we do the InBody assessment. And really we're looking at weight, but more importantly, we're looking at body fat percentage. So on this sheet, you can see a couple numbers, and I'm going to zoom in so that you can get a better view of this, okay? So this is some of the printout information and detail that we get. The first thing that we see is weight. So this individual is 141.1 pounds. If I scale back a little bit, you can see what makes up weight. And so in this instance, what we're seeing that makes up weight is you have water weight, you have dry lean mass weight, and then you have body fat mass, or what we like to call other stuff. So that's what goes into making that total of 141 pounds on this person's body. Based upon those three numbers and how they come together, the printout sheet gives us a rough estimation as to what our program might want to follow. And that is, this individual appears that they could lose 8.5 pounds of body fat while also putting on lean body mass. So if you've ever heard the expression skinny fat, this is an example of that, all right? They've got too much fat on the body, not enough muscle, so weight is skewed not in a good direction. The other thing we note here is the lean body mass is 101.2 pounds. And the reason that's important is because when we set up this individual's caloric intake goal and we go into their macros, we want to make sure that we get at least 1 gram of protein in for every pound of lean body mass. So in other words, this person needs to eat at least 100 grams of protein per day. So when we scale it back, we get some other information that's pretty cool. We get categories as to whether somebody's below the norm, in the norm, or whether they're above the norm in their ranges. So for weight, this individual is in the normal range. But you can see that their skeletal muscle, while in the normal range, is below the level that their fat and their weight is. So that looks kind of like the letter C, or what we would call a weak body type. As we drill down a little bit deeper and we look at the obesity analysis, we see two numbers. One is BMI, that stands for body mass index. This individual is at 22.1, and so therefore they're in the ideal range. However, when you look deeper and you look at their percentage of body fat, right below that number, it's at 28.3, and so that's just a little outside the ideal range, or what we would say a little over fat. And so that's where BMI can skew things for you a little bit. It's height to weight to gender to age oriented. And I always explain it like this. What if you gained 3 pounds of muscle and lost 3 pounds of fat? Your body mass index would be exactly the same, but your body fat percentage, or percentage of body fat, would be much better. So we really want to focus on that number right there. If we drill down just a little bit further, we get segmental lean analysis, which just generally means how proportional is somebody. So this individual here is at 100% of the left arm to 103% of what the expectation would be in their upper body with a strong trunk. But you can see that the left leg and the right leg, while they are in good symmetry or proportion to one another, fall below that 100th percentile. And then finally, we come down here and we see the category and the readout, knowing that the next time we do an assessment, we're going to get new numbers and we'll get a longitudinal view as to if we're moving in the right direction or how we're moving. So again, we've got weight, we've got recommendations, we've got lean body mass. So that tells us how many grams of protein we want to be focused on when we set up their macros. Now we go to the next readout, and on this readout, this comes from the Resting Metabolic Rate analysis. And so this is after somebody breathes into a metabolic cart for about 10 or 12 minutes. we drill down a little bit deeper, and this is the information we get for the calories in. So resting energy expenditure, which is your brain, heart, lungs, your liver, kidneys, red blood cell reproduction, your immune system, gallbladder, pituitary gland, lean mass on the body, burns, or we like to say therefore requires 1,426 calories per day. That's not taking into account lifestyle and activity calories, which are estimated at an additional 427 calories burned, and another 207 calories burned in 30 minutes of activity or exercise. So just starting with the resting metabolic rate, this individual is at 1,426 calories per day, sitting in a chair just to keep them alive. Now, a lot of people might look at that number and think, oh, wow, that's pretty good, 1,400 calories just sitting in a chair doing nothing. But in reality, that number suggests that this individual is a little bit slow or has a impaired metabolism. If we go back and look at the amount of muscle on the body, maybe that explains why that's a little slower than we would expect. So we like to target at the resting metabolic rate number and say eat upwards towards that number. So don't eat less compared to your resting metabolic rate, but come down into the category that used to say weight loss, but we cross out and change for fat loss, because who cares about weight loss? We want to lose fat. So we want to eat upwards towards that 1,426, upwards towards, but let the energy that we burn through lifestyle and activity create the deficit. So that's why we like far parking strategies, using the stairs, walking the dog. Y'all, we can't stress enough that to make this work, you've got to get your lifestyle and activity calories or burn in, and therefore sometimes just monitoring steps at 10,000 a day as a baseline for your lifestyle and activity is a great place to start. Now, I want to show you over here quickly another number that's very important, maybe the most important number on here, and that's known as the respiratory exchange ratio at 0.86. That ratio runs between a 0.7 and a 1.0. When you're close to 0.70, it means you're fat adapted and burning fat as your primary fuel. As you go upwards towards 1.0, it means you're transitioning out of being fat adapted or keto adapted, and you are a glycogen or sugar burner. So for general health and wellness, we like to see that number at least at 0.85 or lower, knowing that an individual is fat adapted and burning fat at rest. Why on earth would they be burning glycogen or going into their anaerobic energy system without putting a demand on the body? This is an expansion of what respiratory exchange ratio numbers look like, and this is where we come up with the rest of the macros for the individual. So we know we have a minimum of 100 grams of protein per day for this individual, which would be 400 calories, leaving 1,000 calories left to put between fat and carbs. How do we make that determination? We look at the respiratory exchange ratio number that the individual showed on the results, which means they're burning from this percentage of each substrate, fat and carb. In other words, if somebody has a respiratory exchange ratio down around that 7 point, they're burning 100% fat and 0 carbs at rest. Conversely, if they're up towards that 1, they're burning 0% fat and 100% carbs. The individual or the subject that we tested in the results that I showed you had the individual at 0.86, which means they're at about 50-50. So 50% of that remaining target daily intake can be given to fat and 50% can be given to carb. If somebody is not fat adapted, let's say they're up here around a 0.94 or 0.95, that means 20% coming from fat, 80% coming from carbs at rest. So we switch the two numbers and say 20% of their carbs can come in to complete their daily target, and 80% can come in from fat. Now, y'all remember, if you're thinking ketogenic diet, you're thinking 80%. Well, that makes sense. No, I'm saying 80% of the remaining calories after we've determined what's necessary for protein and lean muscle mass. Hashtag phrases here that y'all want to keep in mind. Overachieve your protein goals. So it's a minimum of 100. I'd like to see this individual go up to 120, maybe 150. And underachieve fat and carbs. So as you overachieve protein, you have to take it out of the budget, and we always target fat first, because in order to lose fat, you have to burn fat, and you want it to be the fat on your body that you've already eaten, not the dietary fat. All right, so I hope that helps. I'd love to see some comments below. Hope you have a wonderful day.